In 1999, JD and I both started high school.
Welcome to 1999 on MTV. Here to help us ring in the new year, Limp Bizkit! Yeah, baby!
And we were starting to get into politics in some pretty big ways. JD got a job as a cashier at a local grocery store called Dillman's. And Hillbilly Elegy, a book, by the way, with less citations than this video, his book has just 16 citations. This video alone will have more. How many? I don't know. You're a nerd. You count them. Anyway, in the book, JD says, I also learned how people game the welfare system. They'd buy 24 packs of sodas with food stamps, then sell them at a discount for cash. They'd ring up their orders separately, buying food with food stamps and beer, wine, and cigarettes with cash. They'd regularly go through the checkout line speaking on their cell phones. Mamaw listened intently to my experiences at Dillman's. We began to view much of our fellow working class with mistrust. Most of us were struggling to get by, but we made do, worked hard, and hoped for a better life. But a large minority was content to live off the dole. Every 2 weeks, I'd get a small paycheck and notice the line where federal and state income taxes were deducted from my wages. At least as often, our drug-addicted neighbor would buy T-bone steaks, which I was too poor to buy for myself, but was forced by Uncle Sam to buy for someone else. This was my mindset when I was 17, and though I'm far less angry today than I was then, it was my first indication that the policies of Mamaw's Party of the Working Man, the Democrats, weren't all they were cracked up to be. Political scientists have spent millions of words trying to explain how Appalachia in the South went from staunchly Democratic to staunchly Republican in less than a generation. Some blame race relations and the Democratic Party's embrace of the civil rights movement. Others cite religious faith and the hold that social conservatism has on evangelicals in that region. A big part of the explanation lies in the fact that many in the white working class saw precisely what I did working at Dillman's. As far back as the 1970s, the white working class began to turn to Richard Nixon because of perception that, as one man put it, government was paying people who are on welfare today doing nothing. They're laughing at our society, and we're all hardworking people, and we're getting laughed at for working every day. You see, it had nothing to do with race relations or the Democratic Party's embrace of the civil rights movement. It's because poor people eat T-bone steaks. Knock it off, poor people! At this exact time, I was also working at a grocery store in Ohio. I worked at Kroger's for several years, and I was never asked to be or wanted to be a cashier. In fact, compared to what I was doing, cashiers may have been the goddamn shareholders. I was a bagger, meaning that I bagged groceries, not the type of carpet bagging that JD would later go on to do. And for an hour every shift, I had to wander around the parking lot gathering all of the carts. So the political lesson that JD learned as a cashier at Dillman's, which he was later so proud of he used it as an op-ed to promote his memoir, strike me as an incredibly common view. Most of the cashiers that I worked with thought and said the exact same thing all of the time, but they didn't get to write an op-ed later to sell their New York Times best-selling memoir. What makes JD think that he's so special?
I'm a conservative kid. Of course I know that we should be giving people a hand up instead of a hand out.
When writing about his experiences as a cashier in the 90s, JD is choosing to avoid the impact of downsizing and outsourcing that was occurring in many large manufacturing and steel corporations around him, and instead he thinks he's some kind of political genius because in 1999 he's still parroting Ronald Reagan's welfare queen myth. JD Vance is an idiot.
It fooled me, we can't get fooled again.
He's an idiot because he and everyone who thinks like him have been played as a fool. Why do they have so much when I have so little? Let's ask our good pal, Lee Atwater. Lee Atwater was the chairman of the Republican National Committee from 1989 to 1991 and a very successful strategist for the Republican Party as an advisor to Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush. You may remember that because everyone switched and voted for Richard Nixon, something happened and Richard Nixon left disgrace and people were curious if the Republican Party would ever recover. In walks Lee Atwater and he pushed his buddy Ronald Reagan to the top. How did he do it? No one knows, except for he did say a thing about how he did it in 1981.
Yeah, now y'all aren't quoting me on this. All right, I won't. You start out in 1954 by saying by 1968 you can't say because that hurts your backfire, so you say stuff like force busing, states' rights and all that stuff. And you're getting so abstract now, you're talking about cutting taxes and all of these things you're talking about are totally economic things, and the byproduct of them is blacks get hurt worse than whites. And subconsciously, maybe that is part of it. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that if it is getting that abstract and that coded, that we're doing away with the racial problem one way or the other. You follow me? Because obviously sitting around saying we want to cut taxes, we want to cut this, and we want is much more abstract than even the busing thing, and a hell of a lot more abstract than.
Don't quote him on that. Now, just to pick this point to death, I was curious because JD's frustration with seeing poor people on cell phones did become a larger and much more racist political angle during the Obama administration when they were nicknamed Obama phones. I didn't get a cell phone until 2004, my sophomore year of college, when JD would have been in the Marine Corps. What JD is complaining about is related to the Lifeline program, which subsidizes phone service for low-income people. First landlines, then cell phones, and as of 2016, it also offers the option of internet service. It provides a subsidy of up to $10 a month for Americans below 135% of the poverty line and was created in 1985 under a president who it turns out was not Barack Obama, a president who is famously known for his love of poor people, Ronald Wilson Reagan.
There you go again.
And Ronald Wilson Reagan loved giving poor people handouts so much that 2 years later, in 1987, he would make unemployment compensation subject to federal and state taxes. So if JD was looking down at his taxes and feeling puzzled, poor people who received unemployment benefits were doing the exact same thing, feeling a lot more puzzled.
Once worked for the Illinois State Unemployment Compensation Board, behind the counter, this is true. And at that time, we made $60 a week, and the claimants made $55. This is true. This is true. And they only had to come in 1 day a week. Now, it took me about a week to figure that out. So I arranged to get fired and wound up on the other side of the line and only had to come in 1 day a week.
So JD Vance is a high schooler working at a grocery store being mad at people on welfare. A system where about half of families leave within a year, 70% within 2 years, and almost 90% within 5 years. Giving people money to live helps them live. If we could learn any lesson from how governments handled COVID-19, it's that. JD's logic is suggesting that it's the Democrats who are wasting government money by giving it out to welfare recipients. In 2018, the Trump administration, of which JD Vance is currently campaigning to be a part of, considered a plan that would allow states to require certain food stamp recipients to undergo drug testing, affecting the nearly 42 million Americans on SNAP assistance. In the previous year, 13 states, most Republican-led, spent $490,000 drug testing welfare recipients to find underwhelming results. And this was after Florida lost $45,000 doing the same thing in 2012. Florida, land of the free, found that only 2.6% of applicants tested positive for illegal drugs, a rate that was 3 times lower than the 8.13% of all Floridians. To be fair, when a similar program was tried in Utah, they saved $369,000 in the first year of its drug test program. But that number counts all 250 people who prematurely ended the application process, not just the 12 applicants who tested positive for illegal substances.
There you go again.
10 of the 13 states that imposed drug testing in 2017 were states that did not expand Medicaid eligibility under Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. Even though Medicaid covers a disproportionate share of people with opioid addiction. So these states turn down free money for poor people that includes money for drug addiction treatment only to waste tax dollars to drug test them. If you want to find real, substantial governmental waste, it's very easy to do so without scapegoating poor people.
I believe that there is so much waste around here. And again, every time you get into, see, I'm the only guy that talks numbers. I love this. Nobody else will even talk about it. As I've said, it's like a crazy ant in the basement. Everybody knows she's there, but nobody talks about her. I'm talking about it. Then I can talk, with endless numbers about it. And then when I finish, typically the establishment press said, he didn't tell us enough. I just break up. Nobody else said anything.
Since our buddy JD Vance is offering up no statistics, no data, no figures, again, this video has more citations than the entire book of Hillbilly Elegy, let's look at some anecdotal evidence, since that's pretty much all Hillbilly Elegy is. We want to illustrate here that getting money from the government can actually be good. So for many people, it can help save their life, and then they still will be politically against it. Payments also went to people who kept their job, which helps explain why near poverty fell. The beneficiaries include John Asher of Indianapolis, who once served prison time for selling drugs but is now sober and earning $500 a week as a maintenance man. With $3,200 in stimulus checks, Mr. Asher, 49, was able to leave a boarding house, rent an apartment, and take custody of an autistic son who he feared would go to foster care. But he said he distrusted the crooked government and urged poor people to help themselves. If you want to change your life, you have to get up and do something, not sit at home and get free money, he said.
I've been on food stamps and welfare. Anybody help me out? No.
JD was lucky to be working at Dillman's rather than Kroger's, because if he worked at Kroger's, he might have much bigger issues than the taxes on his paycheck, like not getting one at all. Just last year, 2023, Kroger's was involved in 4 class action lawsuits over payroll mistakes.
Kroger employees say they've been paid late for weeks.
A payroll computer glitch, they're telling us.
The new payroll software is cheating them out of their hard-earned money.
When the money comes, it doesn't come in full.
At the beginning, it felt like this was maybe a 1 week, 1 payroll issue, and it was going to get corrected. But now we're sitting here about 6 months later, and we're still dealing with payroll issues.
After 87 years in Middletown, Ohio, the grocery store of Dillman's closed in 2015. Steve Dillman, 61, pointed to several reasons for the closing of the store, from dwindling sales to competition from dollar stores and drugstores to increased crime and growing Section 8 housing in the city. Middletown, he said, isn't the same city it was decades ago. Dillman said the stiffest competition doesn't come from Kroger's, Meijer, or Walmart. The store has survived against the major retailers, but he said the smaller stores, those that sell what he called easier items at or below cost, have impacted his bottom line. Steve Dillman didn't care about competition coming from Walmart. Remember earlier when I said that Walmart was the place to hate in the 90s? Well, Walmart had been trying since 1999 to build in Middletown, and at the end of 2008, they opened one of their largest supercenters there, 214,000 square feet. I haven't done the math on this, but I assume that is like 2 square feet for every person in Middletown. So if you live in Middletown, go down there and ask for your 2 square foot and a pack of Marlboro Lights. They owe it to you. I'm not telling Steve Dillman or JD Vance that crime in our area of Ohio isn't high. But why is it high? Crime and poverty is a symptom. You can't save an economy by making crime more illegal.
I'm a conservative kid. I think that crime should be, illegal?
The crime rate in any city is not going to look that bad if you put robbery up against the wage theft that is occurring by the companies that are complaining about being robbed from. In 2014, 10 years ago, for those keeping track at home, wage theft was estimated to be at $50 billion a year. Try stealing $50 billion of deodorant next time you're at a Walmart. Remember those Axe commercials where like all the girls would be chasing you? Except it's all of the like older employees at Walmart. They're just like chasing you down the street. If everyone who shits in Middletown, Ohio, went to Walmart and stole their toilet paper, how long would it take until they reached $50 billion to make it even? In the late 90s and early aughts, Springfield, Ohio had not one, but 2 Walmarts that were basically sucking a bustling shopping center area dry. It came back a little bit, but then here's a picture of me at a store in our mall from just a couple years ago. We call that store Bus Stop Simulator. So Middletown has lost a family-owned grocery store that had been there for 87 years because of not Walmart, but the smaller stores, those that sell what he called easier items at or below cost. He's talking about Dollar General, which has an annual revenue of $37 billion. Dillman's is now literally one of those stores. It is now the site of a Dollar General. Dollar stores across the US, and especially in Springfield and Middletown, have increased since Dillman's went out of business in 2015.
Dollar stores have been expanding for decades. Experts have attributed it to the growing wealth inequality in America. That means more and more people are looking to save money and opting for a good deal. But the COVID-19 pandemic has accelerated those trends. In 2020, Dollar General's same-store sales reached 16%, a significant increase from 3.9% and 3.2% in 2019 and 2018, respectively.
Middletown currently has 5 Dollar Generals, And for good measure, here's all their Family Dollars. Now, I don't need to keep talking shit about dollar stores right now. In fact, if you really care about that, here's a video to someone who is more British and has more data than me giving you that rundown. Open it up into another tab and then watch it once you've finished all of the parts of this series. But one last thing about Steve Dillman. Steve Dillman. Closing his grocery store even though he was able to compete with Kroger's and Walmart, but couldn't compete with these smaller stores that sell things for cheap. There's a special section of Family Dollar's Wikipedia page specifically for allegations of creating food deserts. Family Dollar and dollar stores in general have been alleged by a number of studies, individuals, and organizations to proliferate food deserts. Areas with limited access to healthy and affordable food. Dollar stores are alleged to outcompete local grocery stores and end up being one of the few options available for purchasing food in some communities. In line with these allegations, a number of states have passed regulations on where new dollar stores can be opened. Regulations on where new dollar stores can be opened? I thought government regulations were bad.
I think you can make a very sound argument that competition would force people to do better work. Like if you're a plumber, you have a vested interest in doing the best plumbing job you can so that people will rate you on Yelp so that you will get more work. You don't have a vested interest in cutting corners. Now you might, right? You're gonna push it as much as you can to save as much time and energy and money as you can. But once you go over that edge, yeah, you don't wanna be known as the guy that you tightened something too much so that you flooded the house. Or when you're building a house.
You're thinking logically though. When people fuck things up and short things and do things terrible, they're not thinking logically.
But I don't think it's the government. I don't think it's the government that they're like, the government gave me this regulation, so that's why I'm going to do it right.
Well, if they didn't have any regulations, there'd be no incentive whatsoever to do it right.
No. I'm sorry to Mr. Dillman, but JD Vance has no answer for you because that's capitalism, baby.
The average Dollar Tree store grosses $1.7 million a year. So what Dollar Tree lacks in size and scale, it does make up for in margin. The company's annual gross margin hovers at 30%, with a COGS of 70%. That means that for every product that Dollar Tree sells for $1, the product cost is 70 cents and the company pockets 30 cents as gross profit. If you were to repeat the same exercise with Target and Walmart, the numbers are actually fairly interesting. Despite having much larger stores, greater inventory diversity, a much bigger brand, a broader customer base, and a higher sales volume, Walmart's annual gross margin is only 24% with a COGS of 76%. Target's gross margin, on the other hand, is similar. It's remained steady at 28% with a COGS of 72%.
And it might surprise you, but capitalism at its core is anti-competition.
Competition is for losers, something we'll be talking about today.
It's not about getting a better product. It's about undercutting your competitors until they crumble and then you either eat them up or you crush them. Either way, you increase your market share and increase your profits by driving up prices because the consumer has no alternative. There is no alternative. Let's go back to that clip earlier where JD calls his hometown a carbon copy of mine.
There's a community called Springfield, Ohio, and it's very close to my heart because Springfield, Ohio, if any of you know the state of Ohio, it is nearly a carbon copy of Middletown, Ohio, where I grew up. It's a population, sort of a small to medium-sized town, about 55,000 people. In the last 4 years, thanks to Joe Biden's open border policies, the city of Springfield has gone from 55,000 residents to 75,000 residents. The 20,000 resident delta is almost all recent Haitian immigrants. Now go to Springfield, go to Clark County, Ohio, and ask the people there whether they have been enriched by 20,000 newcomers in 4 years.
It's disingenuous to believe that this is A, the true source of problems facing the Midwest, and B, that cities like Springfield were living in some economic dream state before the arrival of Haitian immigrants. Allow me to read again from J.D. Vance's book, Hillbilly Elegy. I noticed that a Facebook friend, an acquaintance from high school with similarly deep hillbilly roots, was constantly changing boyfriends, going in and out of relationships, posting pictures of one guy 1 week and another 3 weeks later, fighting on social media with her new fling until the relationship publicly imploded. She's my age with 4 children, and when she posted that she finally found a man who would treat her well, a refrain I'd seen many times before, her 13-year-old daughter commented, "Just stop. I just want you and this to stop. I wish I could hug that little girl because I know how she feels." In a New York Times best-selling memoir, he finds it appropriate to talk about the Facebook post of a high school acquaintance just so he can comment on her relationship status, to make some bigger point about love and poverty in Ohio or something. By the way, a better title for the book? Love and Poverty in Ohio. Well, let me do the same, okay? Because I have a Facebook friend who's actually an actual friend who I was friends with in junior high and high school. Hi, Mark. One day I was scrolling or stalking his page when I saw a video that he shared of his dad. Basically, his dad, who lives in Springfield, was driving to work and picked up a Haitian family that needed a ride. He decided to film a video in his car with them, basically saying that the family he met was good, God-fearing people who were just looking for work and trying to provide for their family, and that if you're in a position to help them out, you should. Because it's people like that that make this country great. I'm paraphrasing, and I didn't want to put someone on blast and post this video, but Mark, if I'm wrong about any of this, just call me out in the comments. Hey, it's Joel. Sorry if this is jarring to interrupt myself, but just want to say that all of this was written and recorded before the debate happened. You may remember
in Springfield, they're eating the dogs.
Yeah, so I had already talked a little bit about the Haitian community in here, and I just kind of wanted to tag onto this with a take from a Springfield resident who may or may not be related to me.
Our town had invited the Haitians to come around 2014, or at least our mayor did, made our city available to these people to take some of the manufacturing jobs that we had that our people would not take and our businesses could not find people for.
Mirzu says he came to Springfield for the same reason most Haitians did. He heard that housing was cheap and jobs were plentiful. Jamie McGregor is the CEO of McGregor Metal, which makes welded parts for the auto and farm industries. Right now, about 10% of his workforce is Haitian, over 30 employees.
I wish I had 30 more. Our Haitian associates come to work every day. They don't have a drug problem. They'll stay at their machine. They'll achieve their numbers. They are here to work. And so in general, that's a stark difference from what we're used to in our community.
Since he came with this false narrative of the illegal Haitians who are here legally, raising hell and bringing diseases, which the disease rates went down, the crime rates went down. Our employers are happy with the employees they're getting. Anyhow, now our town has turned into where we have to have state troopers in every elementary school, every high school. Our colleges have been shut down from false bomb threats. Our hospitals have been shut down by false bomb threats.
We condemn all violence and condemn all threats of violence. People are frustrated with the national media attention. Some people are also grateful that finally someone is paying attention to what's going on.
We now have the Proud Boys marching with their Nazi banners right through our cultural jazz festivals.
I was at the head of the anti-Haitian immigration march earlier this month.
The literal Nazi, he marched with swastikas.
First of all, I've come to bring a word of warning. Stop what you're doing before it's too late. Crime and savagery will only increase with every Haitian you bring in. And with it, public frustration and anger.
You sound threatening to me.
Based on the comments
if I could
tonight,
ask the police to go ahead.
I'm sure I don't need to tell you that.
Just sound threatening if you go ahead and just peacefully be removed.
And this year, we've seen them in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. We've seen them in Springfield, Ohio. They were trying to get in on the anti-immigration, like you say, thing that the topic's so hot right now. And so white nationalists know that too. And they have been appearing at Springfield rallies. They have been appearing at Springfield City Council meetings and making threatening speeches. And they have been online and they've been making these memes and pushing this angry, racist rhetoric. And usually that's where it stops, right? For this time, for some reason, J.D. Vance and Donald Trump have promoted these claims and refused to back down from them. So for these white nationalists, this is mission accomplished.
And now we've got the other side responding with black militia marching through our town. And the rhetoric just will not stop. The only problem they have really caused is probably lack of driving experience causing wrecks. That's the only downside I see from having this influx of Haitians come into our community. I think with time they'll acclimate, they'll learn how to drive, and our community will be the better for having them. The national rhetoric needs to stop and leave our little rural town alone.
Then we should ask, what has he done for the community, the white people in Ohio that he does care about? Is he talking about their jobs? Has he talked about the train derailment that happened a year ago in Springfield, Ohio? Is he talking about the federal money that he's currently blocking from coming to OK Steel, the steel manufacturing plant in Middletown, Ohio? No, he is not. But this ties in to wasteful government spending, something that J.D. Vance and the Republicans tend to care about. Okay, government can't give money to poor people. Again, we were talking about tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars that had been wasted drug testing poor people who receive unemployment insurance. But now literally millions of dollars have been spent to JD's heightened rhetoric that has caused over 30 bomb threats, mostly coming from international sources. So with that, JD obviously doesn't care about government spending money when it's helping them make people more divided, could possibly lead to him becoming vice president. But now back to me with our regularly scheduled programming. Between 1999 and 2014, Springfield saw the median income decrease by 27% compared to just 8% across the rest of the country. In the 1990s, Springfield lost 22,000 blue-collar jobs. And if you want to know more, NPR in 2016 did a national article called Springfield, Ohio, a shrinking city faces a tough economic future. And this is to say nothing about the rise of Walmarts 20 years ago and the rise of dollar stores today. Yes, I'm still complaining about Walmart.
There you go again.
To make up for it, here you go. Here's a clip of Sam Walton hula dancing.
Grab him by the hand. And I'll never do it again. I'll never challenge our folks again. Everybody loves the with the load
Look, there's a lot more at play here than JD lets on. At this time, neither one of us were smart enough to be able to see it clearly, but we both got older and smarter. So to end this part, here's one of the first songs I learned to play when I was taking guitar lessons at this time of our lives.